Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello and welcome to this week's Mission Imperfect. And this week, we are finally going to actually talk about life coaching. Because as two life coaches, it's taken us a whole series to actually do an episode about life coaching. How crazy is that?
Yes, whoops. Is what we can both say to that. I mean, we've touched on it, of course. Well,
Oh,
we've
yeah.
mentioned that we are life coaches and we've touched on it on occasion in relation to other topics, but not actually done an episode about it. So we thought let's just crack on and talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. Because,
Absolutely.
we could bust a few myths, hopefully, as well. And obviously, we should just caveat that that is according to us as life coaches. Other life coaches might have other opinions, but we're just going on the opinions that we share.
Yeah, and just to say that this isn't going to be a hard sell. If you're about to switch off thinking, God, I don't want a big long advert and someone trying to sell to me, that's not what this is about at all.
No, no. This is to help people just appreciate what actually is it? Should I even care about it? Be at all interested? Because I think it is a bit of a big fat question mark for people. Perhaps less so in the last few years, but actually it there are a number of life coaches out there, and it
Mm.
might be leading to even more confusion for people about what life coaches actually do or other sorts of coaches. And and a confused mind says no. I remember that phrase when I heard it a long time ago, and I thought that's very true. If you don't feel like you understand what it's about, you're going to say no. And I think it's fine to say no, but do it from a place of, okay, I get what it is, and it's not for me. Because I just think it would be a shame for people to hesitate about experiencing something like coaching, which we know to be really beneficial because of misconceptions. So we're going to try and remove some of those today and then, make that informed choice of, oh, that sounds interesting, or no, it definitely doesn't, because either of those responses is fine.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know about you, I firmly believe that there is no point in trying to talk somebody into coaching. If you have to persuade someone into it, then it's not going to work for them because there is going to be that resistance and that expectation that the coach is doing something for them, and that's not how
Mm,
coaching works. So I am much happier if somebody is not interested. I respect that. End of.
yeah. Yeah, me too. It's fine
Mm.
just to say no, not for me. And for whatever reason, or don't even give one. You don't even have to do that either. As we
No,
said
of
before,
course not.
no is a complete sentence. So there we go. And the irony is we've actually both come to coaching from ever such slightly different angles from HR, but we've both this is like our sort of second career, as it were. And we've been coaches between us for quite some time now. I think how many years for you, Kirsty?
It's about the same as you.
Yeah.
I did. I started my training around the time of COVID. Accidentally, I didn't plan it to start with COVID. I didn't plan COVID either. Yeah. So when was that? 20, wasn't it? 20.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. So
Yeah.
between
So
us,
5 years. Hmm.
about 10 years experience of coaching, and from our work with clients we know it can be a bit of a game changer, so we just want to share a little bit about it with you all. But we're going to actually start where you may not expect. We're going to talk a bit about what coaching isn't first, because I think sometimes that just clears up a few question marks straight away. So let's bust a few of those myths. So myth number one, that coaching is like counselling or therapy or mentoring, or is the poor relation of those things.
Hmm.
And I get why people might wonder about it, because it's got the word life in there. What does that really mean? You can't live someone's life for them. What I would say to that is that, yes, so all of those things, they are supportive interventions, but they do differ. And that's
Yeah.
certainly according to how we have learned to be coaches. And just a little aside, the truth is anyone can actually call themselves a coach, but what they actually practice might be a bit different. It might be more along the lines of a mentor, or something a little bit different. Certainly, when it comes into things like business coaching and perhaps slightly more instructive sort of pathways.
Yeah.
Um,
There can be quite a lot of teaching in it as well, I think.
yes,
These
yes,
days
exactly.
it's quite common to hear a coach who's selling sort of a package or program to talk about what they will teach you. And that
Mm,
always gets my hackles up saying that that's not coaching. That's not to say it's not useful. Um, Far from it, but it is something that's not quite coaching under an umbrella of coaching.
yeah, and that's where it can get a bit murky. I don't. I when with an industry that's not regulated like coaching, it is tricky because people will use the term coach even though they mean perhaps something ever so slightly different. And I don't think any of that is with any perhaps bad intention or anything like that. But I
No,
think people
no.
just need to be clear what it is that they are signing up for. And I guess what we're saying in our sphere of coaching, it is not going to be one of those other things. It is not going to be mentoring or teaching. I think that's a really good addition. And it's not going to be counselling or therapy. I would
Mm,
say that coaching can be therapeutic for sure, because
absolutely, yes.
it's that sort of space to talk and to reflect.
Mm,
But just to really hit that on the head about therapy and counselling and how that's different, generally speaking, those two interventions are about exploring the past, perhaps some traumatic events, and sort of focus on a healing sort of element of those past events and experiences that have informed where you've got to now. And in coaching, we obviously are interested in where you are now, more with a view of how that's going to help you move forward. We
yeah,
always learn in our coach training. It's sort of like you're facing forwards rather than facing backwards. It's not that we ignore the past. It's just that's not where we're really going to spend our time going over things.
yeah. I actually met a coach who said that what inspired them to become a coach was they had counselling quite some time and they found it very useful, but they were left with this sense of what next.
Mm,
I've kind of learned to deal with some things that happened to me in the past and to sort of start making peace with that, heal from it, however you like to put it. But now I need to know how to move forward. I need to know what next. And that was what drew them to coaching. And they
mm,
benefited from it so much they ended up training and becoming a coach. And I always think that's really interesting that
yeah.
that differentiation. But I mean, coaching, depending on the client, coaching can often involve exploring the past and how that's affected you, what you've done in the past, which perhaps has bothered you or that has influenced you, and how that may how that's stopping you moving forward, and how you can start to move to change that and react to it differently. So I mean that all depends on the client, but there's that big caveat that mostly coaches are not sort of trauma qualified. They have no professional um, education on that side of things. Although there are some specialist ones out there who do. But for instance, the average life coach does not. If they are trauma trained, a coach will probably have that in their title.
Yes, yes, I would have thought so too. And I think you're absolutely right. I think this idea of the sort of what next, it's not to say there's like this sort of hard stop line between, as we've often said, there's sort of slightly blurred boundaries between a lot of the things that we talk
Yeah.
about. So it's not like there's this sort of invisible line that you cannot cross, but it's sort of there, I think, in most coaches' minds, and about where, at what point it might become a slightly different conversation and might be beneficial to involve a different expert. But certainly they can be complementary, counselling and coaching, that is, they can actually work hand in hand. And just to illustrate the other one that we mentioned, which was a mentor. So in this case, I think a coach and mentor is often used quite interchangeably. You see a lot of those job titles sort of used. And I wonder if you agree, Kirsty, but for me, a mentor is someone who's kind of guiding you through, usually from their own previous experience of being sort of in your shoes or similar. And you're sort of following the path that they've trodden to get to where they are now. So it's kind of like a sort of technique to mastery of sort of follow in my footsteps, and I'll sort of
Mm.
show you the way. And that is the
Yeah.
difference for us with as coaches, because we don't say follow my path, but like let's help you create your own one.
Yeah, I think a mentor is fundamentally somebody who will help you learn from their experience. Whereas in coaching, by and large, there is no disclosure of the coach's experience. Although again, that varies from coach to coach, from client to client even, and depending on the context and what might be useful. Again,
Yeah, agreed.
it,
Yeah.
it all gets a little bit blurry, doesn't it? Um,
It does. I think we're just sort of outlining the more general principles that
yeah,
yes, I think if you wanted a coach's opinion, they probably wouldn't say no, you can't have it, but they might just say I
some
am
might.
happy to share that. They might do. If it was me, for example, I might say I'm happy to offer one if you would believe it would be helpful, but of course it may not
Yeah.
be, and you'd be very free to take it, leave it, do whatever you like with it. But if it's something that you believe might be helpful, because I think what we're trying to do with coaching is an element of sort of bridging a gap between what's happening right now and where it is you might want to
Mm.
be. And that can be in any sort of, and that's the beauty of it being life coaching. It can be in any kind of way. It can be about how you think about yourself, as well as the real practical things like the job that you're doing, or perhaps where you're living, or any of those kind of things. But it's about what is that gap? How might we do it? But not like here's the map and the route for you
Yeah.
to get there. And that's not laziness. It's not, but it's deliberate. So
In fact, it's kind of the opposite of laziness because to decide that you know how to solve someone else's problem and just tell them what to do, that rather than listen to them and get to know to understand what's going on for them, I think that's the lazier option.
mhm. Well, you're very handsy, Kirsty, connected us nicely to myth number
Oh,
two, which is a
damn
coach will
hungry.
tell me what to do or tell me how to sort my life out. I think we could throw the word life in there. I'm afraid we do not have magic wands as much as we
Nope.
wish that we probably did, because then we'd wave over our own lives first. We still have all the same sort of issues and things ourselves. We're just very aware, I guess, of tuning into them and perhaps helping others with them. But yes, coaching is not about advice giving. What we try to do is ask the right question. I've heard a great phrase about the right question is even more powerful than the right answer, or something like
Answer.
that. It's like you've got to
Mm,
find the right question to get you to the answer anyway, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
and it just takes someone to ask you. I mean, that we've probably both experienced this ourselves, Kirsty, either in training or in our own coaching sessions as being the coachee. Someone just asks you a question, you're like, ah, okay.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know how to answer it yet, that's the right question.
Yeah. Ping.
Yeah.
If that perspective just shifts, something comes into focus. It's oddly powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you rightly say, if someone, even if it's well intentioned and says, this is what I would do, or a recommendation, it can just not fit right with you.
Mm.
It could be that it would work perfectly well for them, but they are not you, and you don't always buy into or believe, actually, probably more importantly, something that's just kind of given to you as a thought than one that you've come up with
So
yourself.
true. So true, yeah. And it can feel really dismissive, can't it? Because if you're really struggling with something, I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this kind of conversation in the past, when you're in a difficult place, whatever, and you
Mm.
share it with somebody, sort of, bare your soul to them, and then they go, right, what you need to do is, and then they come out with something and you think, no, 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 that's not what I need to do. I don't want to do that.
Mm.
Have you even been listening? Do you know who I am? And although what you actually do is just sort of nod and smile and say thank you a lot and think, oh God, I'm going to go away and cry in a corner now because I feel even more alone and misunderstood than I did when I started talking. What's the point in talking about it?
Mm. You're probably right. That probably has happened. I wish I could think of a really good example of it right now on the spot, but sod's law, it'll come to me later. But yeah, I definitely know what you mean when someone just thinks, well, this is how you fix it, and it's from their perspective, and it's going to be different from yours, even
Yeah.
even if it's similar. it's much more powerful to work it out, even if you take into account options and then dismiss them. I think that's also is useful thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do with coaching. It's about engaging useful thinking and possibly new thinking that you might not have tuned into yet. So it's not
Mm.
about leaving you stuck. I think another misconception is that a coach will just keep asking you questions, and that can get really frustrating. And I think I'd like to say a good coach won't do that and just leave you sort of stuck without answers. And often it's the thinking that will happen not just in that moment in time, it might be a little while later. You'll revisit something, you'll connect the dots, and
Yeah,
you'll think, this makes sense to me now, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's the other thing about coaching. It's about, it doesn't all happen in that exact moment, does it? It can happen a little
definitely not.
while later or over a period of time.
Yeah, and it can be really slow burn because it's just, the processing that starts as the result of being made to think about a question, that can bear fruit at any time. Again, another coach I know makes a point of having a sort of check-in with clients about where they were and where they are now, even keeping notes on it about how they felt at the start of the session compared to the end, because she'd had experience before of clients saying, I don't think I'm getting anything from this. She could see the change in them session on session and the way they were talking and how they were talking. She could see the change, but because they were in it, they couldn't.
Mm.
And it
And
was only
sometimes
when
it's
she
subtle.
started going back and saying, do you remember in this session we talked about this and you felt like this? And now you're talking about it in this way and telling me you're feeling like this. And go, oh, God, yeah, did I? Wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's amazing when that happens because sometimes it can feel subtle because it's over time, or you just somehow don't observe it so well on yourself. I think it's safe to say most of us find it harder to observe ourselves objectively than others, even though ironically we are the closest to ourselves and see us all the time. But that's a really good point. And I have an example myself from early in my coaching days with somebody who, during one of our later sessions, she started to refer to something in the past tense that had been an issue. And when she referred to it in the past tense,
wow.
I was sort of like, "Oh, was that deliberate?" And I stayed listening, and she did it again. And when I pointed it out to her that she'd said it in the past tense, she hadn't realised. I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, yeah, it's just not an issue anymore." And I hadn't really realised until then.
How cool is that?
That
That's a
was really
brilliant
cool.
outcome. Yeah.
Love that. So myth three. I think this is also quite a common one. There's probably way more we could come up with. We thought we'll start with three. We might
We've,
revisit
we've got to stop
more
somewhere.
myths in another episode. But myth three, I think this is also another common one that people might think that coaching is for those who need something fixing,
Mm.
possibly including themselves, or
Hmm.
for when something has gone wrong in their lives, or that maybe coaching is perhaps it's showing some kind of weakness in, to need it or to want to have it. And
Yeah.
I'd hate for anyone to have that perspective about coaching because I really don't see it in that light.
No, it certainly can be useful in those situations. However, it is not aimed at dealing with that. It's all about, getting to know yourself and what you want and how to make the changes you want. And that can
Yeah,
apply from going from a bad place to a better place, or it can apply to getting from a good place to a better place. Unless you
exactly.
unless
That's
you
so well
believe you've
put.
achieved perfection already, um, in
In which case,
which
we're not the
case
coaches for you, since we're very
you probably
much
wouldn't be
about.
listening to Mission Imperfect, would you?
No, exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, it's just about you're allowed to want things to be different. And I sometimes think people find that a little bit hard to admit, maybe out loud. They might feel ungrateful or ungrateful for what they've got and that they shouldn't feel this way. But if there is that sort of niggle there, is it going to go anywhere
Nope.
if you don't address it? And I think chances are it probably won't. So coaching isn't about fixing. I think it's just about an element of movement, growth, or change, and moving from feeling a little bit stuck. in our own thinking or situation, whatever it might be. Because we can get into this sort of all I see is all there is mentality, like this is my lot, this is what I have, and we
Yeah.
we stop seeing further afield. It's like the tunnel vision has come in, and the coaching is to try and open up that peripheral vision and see more than what there is. And I think that works for all of us. Certainly my own experience of being coached is I'll be asked a question that I hadn't thought of. I'll sort of shine a light somewhere I hadn't thought to on my own, because that's what coaching is about, someone helping you sort of shine a light in those corners that you'd forgotten about or didn't know were there
Yes.
potentially.
I think very often it's that either you have forgotten they're there or you didn't know they were there. Although quite often when you uncover some of these things in coaching, it feels so obvious at the time that you can't believe you hadn't realized it before. I think that's when you know you've had a little breakthrough when it's something that feels so obvious. But yeah, I mean, I love the way you described it around shining a light on things and sort of breaking out of that tunnel vision, expanding your vision, being able to see more. And I mean, I firmly believe coaching can be had as sort of one-off sessions. It doesn't have to be a big long program or anything like that. But it can be an ongoing relationship. And the more ongoing it is, the more you get the benefit of increasingly learning to question yourself. I think that's what I've got a lot from being coached, as well as being a coach. I mean, I feel increasingly able to question my own reactions and responses and patterns. That's not to say that it's easy to just break those patterns or come up with the right answer straight away. But when you're willing to question them and to shine that light on them, that's the starting point for change.
Yeah. And also that chance to download sometimes. I don't know about you, but sometimes your thinking can just it can just sort of tie itself in a great big knot.
Mm.
At least in my head it does. And it just gets tangled and you don't actually know where to start sometimes. And I liken coaching to almost like you sort of tease out these thought noodles and sort of lay them out so you can actually
Noodles.
see them, see what they are, and then you can pick up which one is the most important to look at first. You don't have to pick them all up at once and unravel them all and know all the answers. It's a process, a sort of teasing out and understanding, and over time, I think. And
Mm.
I think there's some real beauty in just having a little bit of time and that's actually probably the biggest feedback I get about the value in coaching. I don't feel the same, Kirsty,
Yes.
about just having that time to download, share, get it off my chest. You know, we've heard that phrase before, haven't we? To get something off your chest always feels better, and it's just
Yes,
better than being stuck inside your head in a big knot.
absolutely. And I have a client who very consciously uses sessions purely for that. She refers to it as closing some of the open tabs in her head.
Mm, well, that's a good one. I have a bowl of noodle soup and computer tabs.
I
I
can't
like
believe
it.
that our first food metaphor has not been biscuits. This is
I know.
outrageous.
Sorry, I can't do biscuit brain. I don't. It sounds like bird
Biscuit
brain.
brain.
That's probably
Oh,
more
biscuit
apt.
brain, I can work with that. Anyway,
That is a bit about what it isn't. So hopefully we've dispelled a few myths. Let's move on to a little bit about what it is. I mean, hopefully we've been talking a bit about that as we've been busting some of those myths. But I think these were the three words that came first to me. And they were awareness. I think we've said that many times. It all starts with
mm,
awareness, but clarity and direction. They were if you said to me I had to sum up coaching in three words, those might be the ones I'd land on.
I
What
say
do you
I'm
think?
trying desperately to add a word beginning with C to the end of that so it can be ACDC.
Ah, okay.
But
Courage?
maybe courage, that's a good one. Connection was another one, that idea of feeling more connected to yourself and
Mm.
one.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Mm. So ACDC with the C, the final C being a random one of your choosing.
Yes. Yeah, but there are plenty to choose from that are connected with coaching, aren't there? I mean, I would argue confidence is more of a byproduct of having courage, so I'd probably pick courage over that. But anyway, what we're really talking about is you become aware of something, you'll get clear, and then there'll be some kind of movement. So it kind of has that logical
Yeah.
sequence. And specifically, you will be focusing on about your capability and role in that, which will probably be more than you think. Um, and you will have that agency that I think sometimes we discount for ourselves, or we doubt ourselves. We've spoken about this before.
Mm.
We've in another episode about we put sort of some limitations on what we think we are capable of, or what is right for us, or meant for us, or what we should have. It can get
Very
quite
much. Yeah.
tricky, can't it?
Yeah. And funny enough, I often use three terms that more or less correspond to the three you've used, which would be and kind of as a process as well. So self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-belief. So that again, that perhaps more byproducts of coaching rather than the description of, but very much on the same page there.
Yeah. And yes, I think we have to mention the word goals, even though I knew you might grimace at this one, because whether it's has to be an actual tangible goal or something, there is going to be some kind of movement towards this is what I want, even if it's hard to articulate and it isn't a smart goal. I think we've spoken about smart goals before. If we haven't, it might be in our
I
was it in
think
our
we
New
have.
Year episode? If we haven't, we Kirsty and I both have a slight loathing for smart
If you can have a
goals.
slight loathing, yes.
Yes. Which might be a bit anti-coach, but yes, there is something about this is what I definitely want, knowing that that is the case,
Knowing
and
what you
then
want.
yeah, exactly. And I think a goal can be as straightforward as that, right? But it doesn't have to
Mm.
be anything more smart or complicated, I think. Coaches can also provide a bit of an accountability and momentum to help, give you that support. So I think we all could do with it from sometimes, you know, just that element of not wanting to give up because you actually have said it out loud. You've said it to
Mhm.
someone else. There's something that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be an ongoing relationship. Like you said, it's not like a codependent thing. I think that's another thing. Coaches aren't there to hoodwink you into, oh, you must stay with me forevermore, otherwise who's going to keep you accountable? It doesn't work like that.
No.
But we know often once you get going, it becomes a lot easier, as most things do. But at the start in particular, it's quite nice to have that someone to keep accountable to, not for their benefit, but for yours.
Mhm. Accountability or encouragement, maybe. I think it can be that.
Mm.
Just saying it out loud to someone else makes a difference. So knowing somebody is going to ask you about it, or possibly be thinking, they've not done it, have they? It can be quite encouraging, can't it? Motivating.
Yeah. I think during coaching, what you actually have is that space to explore. And it's a safe space as well, because
Yes.
it's not about you have to come up with the right answer straight away and you'll be beholden to everything. It's like, what shall we discuss? And sometimes it will go off in a different direction to what you actually expect. But that's okay, as long as it's something that you feel needs or warrants, talking about or addressing. There aren't any sort of hard and fast rules of no, today we must talk about this because last week we spoke about XYZ, we have to follow this logical path because we know life doesn't always pan out like that. And what's on your mind will probably come out. That's the beautiful thing about a
Yes.
coaching space. What's in your head is going to come probably out. And it's better that than you
Mm,
being stuck, like I said, in that knot of complicated thoughts.
absolutely. Well, there was something I was going to say then, and then it just dropped out of my head, and will probably come back at about 3 in the morning. Um,
Won't be recording then, I'm afraid, Kirsty. So
no, we
I'll have
won't.
to stay with you at 3 a.m., I'm afraid.
Yes, it's that opportunity to explore. I think that is, for me, perhaps the most important aspect of coaching because we do it so rarely. We're just so busy getting on with life and trying to be everything we think we should be and that everybody else wants us to be or needs us to be. And having that chance to just catch your breath, get everything off that hamster wheel. You've got noodles in your head. I've got a hamster wheel. Just going round,
Yeah.
round, round. getting stuff off it just for a while and having a chance to look at that differently, to see yourself differently, to start to, remember who you really are and what it is that truly matters amidst all that life has thrown at you. That's so valuable and it can make such a big difference to how you feel.
Yeah, agreed. So I think we've actually covered quite a lot for one episode on life coaching. I think we will do more. I think we'll perhaps talk a little bit more another time about perhaps who it's for, when you might know it's the right time, the benefits, what actually happens in a session, and so on. But I hope we've done a little bit to dispel some myths today and to explain a bit about what it actually is. So we have got a few quotes to share. And I'm going to slightly break with tradition with two questions, which for once we actually won't answer because as life coaches we would have very biased answers to give anyway. Um, but we've both got a quote of our own to share, and mine is something that I just found myself saying one day, and I do stand by it, and that is that coaching is something to experience rather than to explain.
I
Because
think that's
with the best will in
brilliant.
the world, I can explain a process to you, but unless you actually try it, it's going to remain a little bit of a question mark, hopefully less so than it perhaps might have done at the start of this episode. It's a bit like if I try to explain to you what it would be like to take off in a plane. It's not going to be quite the same as if you were sat in it actually doing it, is it? So,
Very true. Yes. I completely agree with that. If I think if before I had experienced a sort of a coaching conversation, somebody had tried to explain it to me, I'd have been, yeah, whatevs. To be
yeah,
brutally honest. Uh, so yeah, it is quite hard to explain, although in my quote, I've tried to explain. Oops. So coaching is listening and asking questions to help you better understand yourself and make the changes you want to make. It's a conversation focused totally on you. It doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful.
that sums it up really well, actually. And I think it reinforces so many things that we said before about space for you is so valuable. Um, it doesn't have to be this big, complicated issue or topic, or like we said, when things have gone wrong somehow, it can just be this is what I want and I haven't got it yet. And I might want some support to get there.
Or I don't know what I want,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
want to find out what I want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Lovely. I've got a couple more. So, particularly like this one, coaching works because it's all about you. When you connect with what you really want and why, and take action, magical things can happen. And that's from
Mm.
somebody called Emma Louise Elsie, which I think is very wise.
And I like this one from Elaine MacDonald. A coach does for the rest of your life what a personal trainer does for your health and fitness. Because nobody questions using a personal trainer. That's taken as perfectly normal these days, useful and
Yeah,
valuable, and rightly so. But what about your mental and emotional well-being and state? What are you
yeah,
what are you investing in sorting that out
exactly.
and
And that
looking
actually
after it?
that links very well to the myth. I didn't really bust actually the one about it being the poor relation because I did, just because it hasn't got something very singular and specific. You know, you think life, what is that? It's woolly, it's vague, it's too general, it's too much of everything. What is that? It can't be a proper thing. I think that quote helps to explain it because we don't question other things, do we?
Mm.
That we might invest in, like a personal trainer, help you get fit and healthy. And what about everything else? So yeah, I'm a big fan of that one too. Right, two questions for you. So I think
Oh,
people can just perhaps take one or both, but I think that hopefully they've both got some value in. So the first one is, could you see if life coaching might be of benefit to you in your life right now or not, given everything that we've discussed? And like I said, we'll probably will do some future episodes to talk a little bit more about life coaching, but it would just be great to know if, from what you've heard so far, if you think that it could be of interest to you or not.
and option B is if you were offered a free coaching session right now, what would you choose to focus on? It's a slightly, well, very coachy comment here. If one of those questions immediately makes you go, no, no, I don't want to answer that, that's the one to answer.
Oh, oh, nice. Yeah. Obviously, as coaches, I think we can both quite easily say yes to the first one, because obviously that's just another quick myth to bust, actually, that coaches don't have coaching themselves. That is not true. I think we can absolutely see the value in it. It's, I think, as someone very wisely said, even a brain surgeon doesn't operate on their own brain. So, as coaches, we also need that support from time to time too. And
Exactly.
I personally find my own sessions extremely valuable and helpful.
Me too. And I'd go so far as to say don't trust a coach who doesn't get coached. It doesn't mean they have to be in an ongoing coaching relationship, but if they never talk to a coach in as a client, I think that's a bit strange, really.
Yeah. Right.
So there we are. Two
Yeah.
questions to end on. And we thought this might be a short episode, and we were wrong. So thank you very much for bearing with us. And if you've got any questions or any thoughts you'd like to share on what we've talked about, you can find our social media links in the show notes, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you soon for another episode. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.